The wind shifted 3 degrees east, and Elena Vasquez adjusted her breathing to compensate. 6 hours prone on a mountain ridge had turned her body into an extension of the rifle, every muscle calibrated to the weapon's geometry. Below her, the valley stretched out in shades of brown and gray, a kill zone waiting for the wrong person to walk through it. Beside her, Master Sergeant Terrence Cole monitored 3 different radio frequencies while tracking atmospheric conditions on his tablet. They had been partners for 4 years, and he knew better than to speak when she was in the zone. I never left the scope. Their target was a regional commander responsible for coordinating attacks on coalition forces across 3 provinces. Intelligence said he would move through the valley sometime in the next 6 hours. Vasquez had made harder shots on less certain timelines. This was routine. Cole's hand suddenly pressed against the ground 3 times. Their silent signal for priority traffic. He tilted the radio toward her so she could hear without breaking her position. The voice that came through was ragged with gunfire and fear. 18 Marines pinned in grid reference Force of Enter, taking fire from multiple elevated positions. 4 wounded. Ammunition critical. Requesting immediate support. Extraction estimated 47 minutes. Cole pulled up the grid coordinates on his tablet, and his jaw tightened. The Marine position was visible from their ridge, 2,400 meters to the southeast. Through her scope, Vasquez could see the burned-out vehicles, the scattered debris of an ambush, and the muzzle flashes from at least 4 elevated enemy positions. She could also see the Marines, 18 shapes pressed against whatever cover they could find, tiny figures trying to survive against a coordinated killing field. Her target was not scheduled to move for another 2 hours. Intel was rarely wrong about movement patterns. 2 hours was enough time. Cole understood her calculation before she made it. He began plotting wind patterns between their position and the Marine perimeter. 12 knots from the northwest, variable gusts reaching 15. Humidity at 34%. Temperature dropping as the sun moved west. Before we see what Elena decides, I want to ask you something. Where are you listening from right now? Drop your city or state in the comments. It always amazes me how many people from different places connect over these stories. Vasquez activated her encrypted communication channel and waited for the handler to respond. The voice that answered was calm, professional, and completely unaware of what she was about to say. Ghost 1 requesting mission deviation, she said. Friendly unit in contact at grid Force of Enter. 18 personnel, imminent casualties. Requesting authorization for fire support. The handler's response was immediate. Negative Ghost 1. Primary target is priority. Maintain position. Vasquez watched another muzzle flash erupt from a rooftop 400 meters from the Marine position. One of the tiny figures jerked and went still. Another wounded. Maybe dead. Handler, she said, her voice flat and certain. Those Marines will be dead in 20 minutes. My target is not moving for 2 hours. I am making a tactical decision. The silence on the channel stretched for 8 seconds. Then the handler spoke again, and she could hear the resignation beneath the professionalism. Authorized for 30-minute deviation. Do not compromise primary mission. Cole was already feeding her the first target solution. Enemy sniper position on a rooftop 1,847 meters southeast. 2 shooters, 1 spotter. They were the most immediate threat to the Marine perimeter. Vasquez began her repositioning. 200 meters east along the ridge would give her a clear angle without exposing her silhouette against the skyline. She moved like water over stone, her ghillie suit blending with the scrub brush and loose rock. Cole followed 5 meters behind, maintaining visual contact with both her and the target area. The new position was perfect. She settled into the prone, adjusted her bipod for the slight downward angle, and found the enemy sniper nest in her scope. 2 men with a Dragunov rifle, focused entirely on the Marines below. They had no idea death was watching them from 2 kilometers away. Cole fed her the numbers. Wind holding at 12 knots. Elevation adjustment plus 14 minutes of angle. Led for target movement. 0, they were stationary. Bullet time of flight, 2.3 seconds. Vasquez placed her crosshairs on the shooter's center mass. She exhaled slowly, letting her heartbeat settle into the space between moments. The trigger broke clean. 2.3 seconds later, the enemy sniper pitched forward over his rifle. His spotter scrambled for cover, confused, scanning the wrong direction entirely. He would never understand what happened. Vasquez was already cycling the bolt, acquiring the spotter before he could reach safety. The second shot was even cleaner than the first. He dropped beside his partner, and the rooftop went silent. In the valley below, 18 Marines had no idea that a woman they would never see had just bought them another few minutes of life. The first two threats were eliminated. 12 more enemy positions remained active. Vasquez shifted her scope to the next target and began her calculations. 28 minutes left. She intended to use every second of them. Sergeant David Chun pressed his back against the burned-out truck and tried to count how many rounds he had left. 2 magazines, maybe 60 rounds. At the rate they were burning through ammunition, that gave him another 10 minutes before he was throwing rocks. The ambush had been textbook perfect. Convoy moving through the valley, enemy positions already established on the high ground, coordinated fire that disabled the lead and rear vehicles simultaneously. Captain Briggs had been in the command vehicle when the first RPG hit. He had driven straight through the kill zone and kept going, leaving 18 Marines to die in the crossfire. Chun would deal with that later. If there was a later, Gunnery Sergeant Holt was 20 meters to his left, screaming orders that contradicted themselves with every breath. Suppressing fire on the north rooftop. No, focus on the eastern building. No, conserve ammunition. The man was panicking, and panic was contagious. A bullet struck the truck inches from Chen's head, spraying him with rust and fragments. He flinched but held position. The enemy snipers were getting their range. Every shot came closer than the last. They were being systematically zeroed, herded into a tighter and tighter cluster where a single grenade would finish them all. Lance Corporal Okonkwo was pressed against a concrete barrier 15 meters away. The kid was 22 years old, on his first deployment, and Chun could see the terror in his eyes. Between them lay Corporal Davis, bleeding from a wound in his thigh that Morrison was trying to pack with gauze already soaked red. 4 wounded. 14 still fighting. Ammunition critical. Extraction 47 minutes away. They would not last 47 minutes. Okonkwo broke cover. Chun saw it happening and could not stop it. The young Marine sprinted toward Davis, determined to help drag the wounded man to better cover. It was brave and stupid and exactly the kind of thing that got people killed. Chun tracked the enemy sniper position on the eastern rooftop. He saw the muzzle shift, tracking Okonkwo's movement. The geometry was simple and terrible. The sniper had the angle. Okonkwo was dead and did not know it yet. Chun opened his mouth to scream a warning that would come too late. The shot never came. Instead, something impossible happened. Dust erupted on the rooftop 400 meters away. The enemy sniper pitched forward over his rifle and tumbled out of sight. One moment, he was aiming at Okonkwo. The next moment, he was dead. But no Marine had fired. Chun was certain of it. He had been watching the enemy position, not their own lines. No muzzle flash came from any friendly location. No sound reached him from the direction that made sense. Okonkwo reached Davis and began dragging him toward cover, completely unaware that he should be dead. Chen's mind raced through explanations and rejected them all. Lucky ricochet, enemy infighting, accidental discharge. None of them fit. The shot had been precise, deliberate, a kill shot from a direction that no Marine controlled. He scanned their perimeter with desperate intensity. Every Marine was accounted for. Morrison on Davis. Okonkwo moving to cover. Holt still screaming orders. Rodriguez and Mills providing suppressing fire to the north. 14 others in various positions of cover. None of them had made that shot. The angle was wrong. The distance was wrong. Everything was wrong. Someone else was out there. Someone was helping them. Chun moved through the debris toward Holt's position, keeping low as rounds snapped through the air above him. The gunnery sergeant was reloading his rifle with hands that shook slightly, his face a mask of controlled fury. Gunny, Chen said, we have external support. Someone just eliminated that Eastern sniper. Shot came from outside our perimeter. Way outside. Holt's response was immediate and dismissive. Negative. No friendly units in the area. No air support. We're alone out here, Sergeant. Focus on the enemy we can see. Chen tried again. I watched it happen. The sniper was tracking Okonkwo. He was about to fire. Then he dropped. No Marine made that shot. The angle came from the ridgeline to the east. That is over a kilometer away. Holt turned to face him, and Chen saw something beneath the anger. Something that looked almost like fear. I said negative. Whatever you think you saw was combat stress. We do not have support. We are fighting this alone. Now get back to your position and put rounds on target. Chen held the gunnery sergeant's gaze for a moment longer, then moved back to his cover. Holt did not want to believe. That was his choice. But Chen knew what he had seen. Somewhere out there, beyond the chaos of the kill zone, someone was watching over them through a rifle scope. Someone with skills that bordered on supernatural. He checked his ammunition again. 2 magazines. Maybe 10 minutes of fighting. He hoped whoever was out there had enough bullets for both of them. Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Holt had spent 19 years in the Marine Corps learning how to control chaos. He had deployed to 3 combat zones, earned a Bronze Star, and trained hundreds of Marines in the art of surviving the unsurvivable. None of that experience had prepared him for this moment. 18 Marines, 4 wounded, ammunition running critical. Captain Briggs gone, fled with the command vehicle and the heavy weapons that might have turned this fight. Holt was the senior man on the ground, and every death from this point forward would be carved into his record. He scanned the enemy positions through his rifle scope, counting muzzle flashes and calculating angles. At least 4 elevated firing points, possibly more. Coordinated fields of fire that overlapped across the entire kill zone. Professional work. Someone had planned this ambush with care. His scope passed over a rooftop 200 meters north. An enemy fighter crouched behind a low wall, shouldering an RPG launcher. The man was lining up a shot on the cluster of Marines near the burned vehicles. 1 rocket would kill 3, maybe 4. Holt shifted his aim, knowing he was too slow. The RPG was already shouldered. The fighter was already squeezing the trigger mechanism. Then the fighter collapsed. His body pitched sideways, and the RPG clattered unfired to the rooftop. No sound accompanied the death. No muzzle flash from any Marine position. The man simply stopped living between one heartbeat and the next. Holt swept his scope across his own perimeter. Every Marine was in cover. None of them were aiming north. None of them had fired. The same cold sensation Sean had described crept up his spine. Something was wrong with this fight. Something did not follow the rules he understood. Chen materialized beside him, keeping low, his face tight with certainty. Gunny, that RPG fighter. You saw it. Nobody here made that shot. We have support from somewhere outside our perimeter. Extreme range. Has to be over a kilometer. Holt turned on him with fury he did not entirely feel. I told you already, Sergeant. There are no friendly units in this area. No air support. No Vedavach. Command confirmed we are alone out here until extraction arrives. Whatever you think is happening, it is not happening. Chen held his ground. Then explain how that fighter died. Explain the sniper on the eastern rooftop. Explain why enemy positions keep going silent when none of us are shooting at them. Combat is chaos, Holt said. Ricochets. Friendly fire among the enemy. Equipment malfunctions. I do not have time to explain every dead hostile when we are fighting for our lives. Get back to your position. Chun retreated, but his expression made clear he was not convinced. Holt watched him go and felt the weight of his own lies pressing against his chest. Private Morrison's voice cut through the gunfire. Movement east. 2 fighters flanking through the alley. 150 meters. Holt swung his rifle toward the threat. 2 enemy combatants advancing through the narrow gap between buildings, moving in tactical formation. They would reach a position to enfilade the Marine line in 30 seconds. He aligned his sights on the lead fighter and began to squeeze the trigger. Both men dropped before he could fire. 2 shots, so close together they sounded almost like one. Both fighters crumpled in identical fashion, struck in identical locations. Neither shot came from anywhere a Marine could have fired. Holt stared at the bodies through his scope. The angles were impossible. The timing was impossible. The precision was impossible. Someone was watching this fight from a distance his mind could not accept. Someone was killing enemy fighters with capabilities that exceeded anything in the Marine Corps arsenal. Someone had them under a Guardian scope, eliminating threats before the Marines even recognized them. And Marcus Holt realized he would rather believe in ghosts than accept what that meant about his own inadequacy. The radio crackled with the extraction pilot's voice. Viper Element, be advised, extraction is 30 minutes out. Confirm your position is secure for landing. Holt keyed his response with a hand that did not shake only through supreme effort. Viper Actual, position is hot, but holding. We will be ready for extraction. 30 minutes confirmed. He released the transmit button and looked across the kill zone at his scatter Marines. 30 minutes. At their current casualty rate, they would lose 2 or 3 more before the helicopters arrived, unless their invisible Guardian kept shooting. Holt checked his ammunition. 1 magazine remaining. Whatever was happening out there, whatever Phantom Sniper was rewriting the rules of this engagement, he would never acknowledge it. These were his Marines. This was his fight. And when the after-action reports were written, the credit would belong to the men who bled here, not to some ghost he refused to see. Elena Vasquez had eliminated 6 enemy positions in 14 minutes, and she was already moving to her 4th firing location. The key to remaining invisible was simple mathematics. Every shot revealed a trajectory. Every trajectory could be traced backward. Stay in one place too long, and the hunters became the hunted. Cole kept pace 5 meters behind her, his tablet tracking atmospheric conditions that shifted with every passing cloud. He monitored enemy radio frequencies through a captured handset, translating the chaos she had created. They are panicking, he reported as they settled into the new position. Command is demanding status reports. Field units are claiming they are under attack from aircraft. No one knows where the fire is coming from. Vasquez allowed herself a small measure of satisfaction as she scanned for the next threat. Confusion was a weapon. Fear was a force multiplier. Every second the enemy spent looking in the wrong direction was a second the Marines had to survive. Her scope settled on a minaret 300 meters behind the primary enemy line. 2 figures occupied the elevated position, one behind a rifle and one behind optics. Their positioning was professional. Their sight lines covered the entire valley. These were not militia fighters with borrowed weapons. These were trained snipers. Cole, she said quietly. Minaret. 2 shooters. They're the command element for this ambush. Cole ran the numbers on his tablet. 2,100 meters. Wind is gusting now, 15 knots with variable direction. Temperature dropping faster than predicted. That shot is at the edge of our effective range. Vasquez studied the minaret through her scope. The enemy sniper was scanning the ridgeline methodically, working his way toward her position. He was good. Given enough time, he would find her. She needed to eliminate him before his search pattern reached her location. She calculated holdover for the extreme distance. At 2,100 meters, the bullet would drop nearly 40 feet during flight. Time of flight would approach 3 seconds. In 3 seconds, wind could shift, targets could move, 100 variables could turn a perfect shot into a miss. She had made harder shots. Not many, but some. Cole fed her the final calculations. Elevation plus 19 minutes of angle. Wind hold left, 6 inches at target. Bullet flight time, 2.7 seconds. Spotter is stationary. Sniper is scanning. Recommend spotter first, then sniper before he can react. Vasquez settled her crosshairs on the spotter's chest. He was young, perhaps 25, with a beard that had not yet filled in completely. He was consulting a range card, checking distances to landmarks in the valley below. He had no idea these were the last seconds of his life. She exhaled slowly, finding the stillness between heartbeats. The trigger broke clean. The bullet crossed 2,100 meters of mountain air in 2.7 seconds. The spotter jerked once and collapsed over his optics. His partner spun toward the sound of impact, confusion and terror colliding on his face. Vasquez was already cycling the bolt, adjusting her aim. The sniper made the wrong choice. Instead of dropping flat and crawling to cover, he froze. 1 second of hesitation. It was enough. The second shot struck him center mass. He folded backward and disappeared from view. The minaret fell silent. Cole marked the kills on his tablet. 8 confirmed. 6 positions neutralized. Enemy command and control eliminated. Her encrypted channel crackled with the handler's voice. Ghost 1, status report. Primary target showing early movement indicators. Confirm you are returning to mission. Vasquez checked her watch. 8 minutes remained on her authorized diversion. But the situation in the valley had not resolved. At least 4 enemy positions remained active. The Marines were surviving, but they were not yet safe. She keyed her response. Handler, enemy contact ongoing. Friendly units still taking fire. Requesting extension. The handler's voice carried an edge of frustration. Negative Ghost 1. Primary target is Priority Alpha. You have already exceeded acceptable deviation. Return to mission immediately. Vasquez studied the Marine position through her scope. The pressure had decreased visibly. Enemy fire was sporadic and uncoordinated, the ambush falling apart without its command element. But sporadic fire could still kill. Uncoordinated enemies could still find lucky shots. She made her decision without hesitation. Handler, she said calmly, I am extending 5 additional minutes. I will eliminate remaining threats and return to primary mission. Target window is still viable. She released the transmit button before the handler could respond and began scanning for the next enemy position. Somewhere in a command center far from this valley, officers would note her insubordination. There would be questions, possibly consequences. None of that mattered. 18 Americans were fighting to survive below her, and she had the power to save them. Everything else was paperwork. Cole appeared beside her with fresh wind data. For remaining hostile positions, 23 minutes until Marine extraction. Plenty of time to finish the job and still make her primary target window. Vasquez found the next threat in her scope and began her calculations. The Ghost had work to do. David Chun had been keeping count. In the 17 minutes since the first impossible shot, 11 enemy fighters had fallen. Not one of them had been killed by a Marine rifle. He was certain of this because he had watched each death through his scope, tracking the angles, noting the directions, building a map in his mind of something he could not explain. The shots came from the east. Always the east. But the positions varied, shifting north and south along what had to be the ridgeline over 2 kilometers away. Whoever was out, there was moving between kills, relocating to avoid detection. Professional, methodical, supernatural. The enemy fire had dwindled to almost nothing. The coordinated ambush that should have killed them all had collapsed in a scattered, panicked shooting from fighters who no longer understood what they were fighting. Their command element was gone. Their snipers were gone. Their confidence was gone. And Gunnery Sergeant Holt was on the radio, taking credit for all of it. Chun listened from 15 meters away as Holt delivered his situation report to the extraction team. Enemy ambush repelled through coordinated Marine fire and superior tactical positioning. For wounded, none critical. 18 personnel ready for extraction. Landing zone will be secure. The words were technically accurate and fundamentally false. They had not repelled anything. They had survived because someone else had done the killing. Chen estimated the Marines had fired maybe 50 rounds total during the entire engagement. 50 rounds and 0 confirmed kills. Their guardian angel had fired 14 times and killed 11 fighters. The mathematics of salvation were not complicated. A hand touched his shoulder and Chun spun, rifle coming up before he recognized Lance Corporal Okonkwo. The young Marine's face was pale beneath the dust and sweat, his eyes carrying a knowledge that had aged him years and minutes. Sergeant, Okonkwo said quietly. That sniper on the rooftop, the one who had me dead. Someone killed him. Someone far away. I felt the bullet pass over my head after the shot. It came from behind us. From way behind us. Chun lowered his rifle and studied the young Marine. Okonkwo was not stupid. He had felt death reaching for him and felt something else snatch it away at the last possible moment. "I know," Chen said. "I have been tracking it. Someone is out there on the eastern ridge. A sniper. Maybe more than one. They have been eliminating enemy positions since the ambush started." Okonkwo absorbed this information with the desperate focus of a man trying to understand why he was still breathing. Who are they? Special operations? Another unit? I do not know, but I'm going to find out. When we get back to base, I am filing a separate report. Everything I saw, every shot I tracked, every angle that does not match our positions. The distant thrum of helicopter rotors reached them from the north. Chen looked up to see two black shapes growing on the horizon, the extraction team arriving ahead of schedule. The remaining enemy fighters were already withdrawing, pulling back through the alleys and side streets, unwilling to engage without the fire support that had been systematically destroyed. Around him, Marines began moving toward the designated landing zone. Morrison helped Davis limp toward the clearing. Rodriguez and Mills provided cover on the flanks. Holt directed traffic with the confident authority of a man who believed his own narrative. Chen moved with them, but his attention remained fixed on the eastern ridge. Somewhere up there, 2 kilometers or more away, someone was watching him leave. Someone who had killed 11 enemy fighters in 17 minutes. Someone who would receive no thanks, no recognition, no acknowledgement that they existed. The helicopters touched down in a storm of dust and noise. Chun helped load the wounded first, then climbed aboard with the rest of his squad. As the aircraft lifted off, he pressed his face to the window and stared at the ridgeline growing distant below. He could not see anyone. The ridge was empty, anonymous, just another fold of terrain in a landscape full of hiding places. But he knew, somewhere in that emptiness, a scope was tracking their departure. Eyes were watching them fly to safety. The helicopter banked north toward the forward operating base, and Chun made his decision final. Holt could file whatever report he wanted. Briggs could endorse whatever lies made him look less like a coward. The official record could say whatever the Marine Corps needed it to say. But Chun would write the truth. He would document every impossible shot, every impossible angle, every moment when death reached for his brothers and something pushed it away. He did not know who their guardian was. He did not know if he would ever learn. But he knew that someone out there had saved 18 lives today, and that someone deserved to have their actions recorded by at least one honest witness. The truth mattered, even when no one wanted to hear it. Colonel Patricia Waverly had spent 26 years learning to recognize when something did not add up. 3 different reports sat on her desk at Joint Special Operations Command Headquarters, and none of them agreed with each other. The first was the official Marine after-action report, filed by Captain Jerome Briggs and endorsed by Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Holt. It described a coordinated enemy ambush repelled through superior Marine firepower and tactical discipline. 18 personnel engaged, for wounded, 0 killed. Enemy casualties estimated at 14 to 16 fighters. The report praised the unit's cohesion under fire and recommended commendations for several individuals. The second was a collection of individual statements from 4 Marines in the unit. Sergeant David Chun, Lance Corporal James Okonkwo, Corporal Davis, Private Morrison. Each statement described the same phenomenon in different words. Enemy fighters dying from shots no Marine fired. Bullets coming from impossible angles. A Guardian presence somewhere beyond their perimeter, eliminating threats they could not see. The third was a Delta Force mission log, flagged for her attention by an analyst who had noticed the geographic overlap. Sergeant First Class Elena Vasquez, call sign Ghost 1, had deviated from her primary mission for 34 minutes to provide fire support to an endangered friendly unit at Grid Reference for Savannah. 14 enemy combatants eliminated. Mission deviation authorized by handler under tactical necessity protocols. Waverly pulled up the grid coordinates and overlaid them on a map. The Marine position and the Delta mission area were less than 3 kilometers apart. The timing matched perfectly. The enemy casualty count matched perfectly. Everything matched except the Marine official report, which claimed no external support had been received. She requested the ballistic analysis from the recovery team that had swept the area after extraction. The results arrived within the hour, and they confirmed what she already suspected. Every enemy fatality had been caused by .338 Lapua Magnum rounds fired from extreme range. Entry angles consistent with elevated firing positions to the east. Estimated engagement distances ranging from 1,800 to 2,200 meters. The Marines had been issued M4 carbines chambered in 5.56 NATO. Maximum effective range under 800 meters. None of their weapons could have made those shots. None of their ammunition matched the recovered rounds. Waverly pulled Vasquez's service record and spent 30 minutes reading a career that most people would never know existed. 14 years of service. 6 years with Delta. Over 100 confirmed kills and operations that remained classified at the highest levels. 2 silver stars that had never been publicized. Specialized training in extreme long-range precision shooting. Current record holder for longest confirmed kill in Delta history at 2,300 meters. The woman was exactly what her call sign suggested. A ghost. Someone who eliminated targets and disappeared without acknowledgement or recognition. Someone whose existence was itself classified, and someone had decided to pretend she did not exist. Waverly placed a call to Major William Reeves, the Marine Battalion commander responsible for the unit in question. His voice carried the weariness of a man who had already begun to suspect something was wrong with his own reports. Major Reeves, Waverly said, I am conducting a preliminary inquiry into the engagement at Grid for Savannah. I have some questions about the after-action report filed by Captain Briggs. Reeves was silent for a moment before responding. Colonel, I have questions about that report myself. I have 4 individual statements that contradict the official account. I have been trying to reconcile them for 3 days. Then you should know that JSOC has independent confirmation of external support during that engagement. Delta Force personnel were operating in the area. Their mission logs document direct intervention. The silence on the line stretched longer this time. When Reeves spoke again, his voice had hardened with something between anger and resignation. Colonel, Captain Briggs was not with the unit during the engagement. He became separated during the initial ambush. He filed a report about events he did not witness. Waverly absorbed this information and felt the shape of the situation crystallize in her mind. A captain who had abandoned his men. A gunnery sergeant who had chosen pride over truth. An official report designed to protect careers rather than document reality. And a Delta sniper who had saved 18 lives and been erased from the record. Major, she said, I am initiating a formal inquiry under Joint Operations Protocols. I will need full access to all personnel involved, all communications logs, and all physical evidence. Someone filed a false official report, and I intend to determine exactly who and why. Reeves did not hesitate. You will have my complete cooperation, Colonel. My Marines deserve to know who saved their lives. And if someone in my command lied about it, they deserve to answer for that too. Waverly ended the call and began drafting the formal inquiry authorization. Somewhere in this mess of contradictory reports and institutional pride, 18 Marines had nearly died and 1 woman had saved them all. The truth would come out. She would make certain of it. Elena Vasquez completed her primary mission 18 hours after leaving the ridge. The regional commander had moved exactly as intelligence predicted, traveling through a mountain pass with a security detail that never saw the threat coming. 1 shot at 2,340 meters. A new personal record. The target dropped and his men scattered into the rocks, searching for an enemy they would never find. She returned to the forward operating base, expecting the standard debrief. Mission parameters reviewed. Shot data analyzed. Intelligence updated for future operations. The routine of invisible war that had defined her career. Instead, she found Lieutenant Colonel David Morrison waiting outside the Delta compound with an expression that suggested routine had been canceled. Vasquez, he said as she approached. We need to talk. Debrief room. Now. She followed him through the security checkpoints and into the windowless room where Delta personnel discussed things that did not officially exist. Cole entered behind her, his presence a silent statement that wherever this conversation went, her spotter would be there to witness it. Morrison closed the door and remained standing, which told Vasquez this was not going to be a standard conversation. There's an inquiry from JSOC regarding your mission deviation 3 days ago. The Marine unit at Grid for Savannah. Vasquez nodded. She had documented everything in her after-action report. 14 enemy combatants eliminated over 34 minutes. Authorization obtained from handler under tactical necessity protocols. Primary mission completed successfully within target window. By every metric that mattered, she had performed flawlessly. The Marine unit has filed their own after-action report, Morrison continued. According to their account, they repelled the enemy ambush through coordinated Marine firepower. No external support received. No Allied units involved. Vasquez processed this information without visible reaction. That is not accurate. I am aware. Your mission log contradicts their report completely. JSOC has requested clarification, which is a polite way of saying someone is lying and they want to know who. She considered the implications. The Marines had survived. All 18 of them had flown out of that valley alive. 4 wounded, but none killed. That was the outcome that mattered. Who received credit for the outcome was paperwork. I intercepted their distress call at 14:37 local time, she said evenly. They were taking coordinated fire from at least 4 elevated positions. Ammunition critical. Extraction 47 minutes out. I made a tactical assessment that they would suffer significant casualties without intervention. I requested and received authorization to deviate from primary mission. Morrison held up his hand. I have read your report. I am not questioning your actions. JSOC is not questioning your actions. The question is why the Marine Corps is pretending those actions did not occur. Cole spoke for the first time, and his voice carried an anger that Vasquez did not share. 14 kills at extreme range. Shots that nobody else in this theater could have made. She saved 18 lives, and they are erasing her from the record. Morrison nodded grimly. The Marine report was filed by Captain Jerome Briggs and endorsed by Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Holt. Briggs was not present during the engagement. He became separated during the initial ambush. Holt was the senior man on the ground. Vasquez understood immediately. Holt was protecting his pride. Briggs was protecting his career. Between them, they had constructed a narrative that transformed survival into victory and erased the woman who had made it possible. I do not need credit, she said. I need those 18 Marines to go home to their families. That happened. Everything else is paperwork. Cole turned to her with frustration evident in every line of his body. Elena, they're saying you do not exist. They are filing official documents that deny you were ever there. This is not about credit. This is about truth. Morrison raised his hand again before the argument could escalate. JSOC is not accepting the Marine report at face value. Colonel Patricia Waverly has initiated a formal inquiry. She will be arriving tomorrow to interview both of you directly. The ballistic evidence from the site contradicts everything in the Marine account. Every enemy casualty was caused by 338 Lapua rounds from extreme range. Vasquez absorbed this without surprise. Bullets did not lie. Trajectories did not lie. Whatever story the Marines wanted to tell, the physical evidence would tell a different one. Then the inquiry will reach the correct conclusion, she said. I will cooperate fully with Colonel Waverly. I will provide whatever documentation she requires. Morrison studied her for a long moment. You really do not care about the credit, do you? Vasquez met his gaze with a steady calm that had made her the most effective sniper in Delta history. I care about the mission. I care about American lives. I care about doing the job that needs to be done. Recognition is for people who need others to validate their worth. She stood and moved toward the door. The conversation was over. The inquiry would proceed. The truth would emerge or it would not. Either way, 18 Marines were alive because she had chosen to act. That was the only outcome that mattered. David Chun stood at attention in Major William Reeves's office and watched the battalion commander read his statement for the 3rd time. The document was 4 pages long, single-spaced, detailing every impossible shot he had witnessed in that valley. Times, angles, distances, the geometry of salvation written in precise military language. Reeves set the papers down and studied Chun with eyes that carried the weight of command decisions. Sergeant, you understand what you are claiming in this document. You are directly contradicting the official after-action report filed by your commanding officer and endorsed by your gunnery sergeant. Yes, sir, Chun replied. I understand. I also understand that 4 Marines in my unit have filed similar statements. We saw the same things. We tracked the same shots. We are all telling you that someone outside our perimeter saved our lives. Reeves nodded slowly. He reached into a folder on his desk and produced 3 additional documents. Okonkwo, Davis, Morrison. Each one describes external sniper support from extreme range. Each one contradicts the official account. Chun felt a measure of relief, knowing he was not alone. The truth had witnesses. Whatever Holt claimed, whatever Briggs endorsed, for Marines had documented reality. The office door opened and Gunnery Sergeant Holt entered, his expression shifting from confusion to controlled anger as he recognized Chun. Sir, you wanted to see me. Reeves gestured to the chair beside Chun. Sit down, Gunnery Sergeant. We need to discuss some inconsistencies. Holt sat, his posture rigid, his eyes flicking between Reeves and Chun with barely concealed hostility. Chun kept his gaze forward. This was not his conversation. He was here as a witness, not a participant. Reeves spread the 4 statements across his desk. I have testimony from 4 Marines in your unit claiming that external sniper support was provided during the engagement at Grid Force Savannah. They describe enemy fighters being eliminated by shots that came from outside the Marine perimeter. Shots from extreme range. Shots that no Marine weapon could have made. Holt's response was immediate and practiced. Sir, those Marines are mistaken. Combat stress creates confusion. In the chaos of an ambush, it is easy to lose track of who fired what shot. Our unit repelled that attack through coordinated fire and disciplined marksmanship. Reeves leaned forward. The ballistic evidence disagrees with you. JSOC has analyzed the rounds recovered from enemy casualties. Every kill was caused by .338 Lapua Magnum ammunition fired from ranges exceeding 1,800 meters. Marines are issued 5.56 NATO. Maximum effective range under 800 meters. Explain how your unit made kills at twice that distance with the wrong caliber. Holt's composure cracked for just a moment before he recovered. Enemy infighting, sir. Factional disputes among hostile forces. They were killing each other, and we benefited from the chaos. The explanation hung in the air, transparent and desperate. Chun watched Reeves process it and discard it without a word. The door opened again, and Captain Jerome Briggs entered, uniform pressed and bearing confident. He nodded to Reeves and took a position beside Holt, presenting a united front. Sir, I understand there are questions about our after-action report. I am here to provide any clarification needed. Reeves did not offer him a seat. Captain, you filed the official report for this engagement. You endorsed Gunnery Sergeant Holt's account, but according to communications logs, you were not present during the firefight. You became separated from your unit during the initial ambush. How did you file a report about events you did not witness? Briggs maintained his composure with visible effort. I debriefed my Marines thoroughly after extraction, sir. Gunnery Sergeant Holt provided a comprehensive account. I compiled that information into the official report. You compiled Gunnery Sergeant Holt's account, Reeves said carefully, and you chose to ignore the contradicting statements from 4 other Marines. Statements that describe a completely different engagement than the one in your report. Briggs exchanged a glance with Holt. Sir, in my judgment, those Marines were experiencing combat stress. Their perceptions were unreliable. Gunnery Sergeant Holt was the senior man on the ground. His account represented the clearest picture of events. Chun could not contain himself any longer. With respect, sir, I was not experiencing combat stress. I tracked every shot. I measured the angles. Someone killed 11 enemy fighters from over 2 kilometers away while we huddled behind burned-out trucks with empty magazines. That is not perception. That is fact. Hull turned on him with fury barely restrained by military protocol. You will not speak out of turn, Sergeant. Reeves raised his hand, silencing both of them. Enough. He gathered the statements and the folder of evidence into a single stack. I am requesting the complete findings from SOC's investigation. Colonel Patricia Waverly has already initiated a formal inquiry. If Delta Force was in that valley providing fire support, I will know within 72 hours. He fixed Briggs and Holt with a gaze that promised consequences. And if I discover that anyone in my command filed false official reports to protect their career or their pride, they will answer for it. Dismissed. Chun saluted and left the office with the knowledge that the truth was finally moving faster than the lies designed to bury it. Colonel Patricia Waverly studied the evidence wall in the JSOC Investigation Center and felt the case crystallize into undeniable clarity. Her team had spent 72 hours compiling every available piece of data, and the picture they had assembled left no room for interpretation. 14 confirmed kills. All .338 Lapua Magnum. All from consistent eastern elevation positions. Shot trajectories mapped and verified through forensic analysis. Engagement distances ranging from 1,847 meters to 2,100 meters. Shooter relocation patterns indicating at least 6 different firing positions over a 34-minute window. The mathematics of the engagement were precise and damning. Someone had dismantled an enemy ambush with surgical efficiency from distances that exceeded the capabilities of any Marine weapon system. Someone had saved 18 lives through skill that bordered on the impossible. And the Marine Corps was pretending that someone did not exist. The secure video link activated, and Sergeant First Class Elena Vasquez appeared on the screen. She sat in a bare room at the forward operating base, her expression calm and professional. Beside her, Master Sergeant Terrence Cole waited with a tablet containing the mission data Waverly had requested. Sergeant Vasquez, Waverly began. Thank you for making time for this interview. I have reviewed your after-action report and your mission logs. I need you to walk me through the engagement in your own words. Vasquez nodded and began speaking with the measured precision of someone who had delivered countless debriefs. At 14:37 local time, Master Sergeant Cole intercepted a distress call on emergency frequency. 18 Marines pinned at grid for Savannah. Coordinated enemy fire from multiple elevated positions. For wounded. Ammunition critical. Extraction 47 minutes out. She continued without prompting, her voice never wavering. I assessed the tactical situation through my scope. The Marine position was visible from our location at approximately 2,400 meters. Enemy positions were identifiable. I calculated that without intervention, the unit would suffer significant casualties before extraction arrived. You deviated from your primary mission, Waverly said. A high-value target operation. Walk me through that decision. Vasquez met her gaze through the video link. My primary target was not scheduled to move for 2 hours according to intelligence. I had a window. 18 Americans were going to die if I did not act. I requested authorization from my handler. Authorization was granted for a 30-minute deviation under tactical necessity protocols. Cole interjected, pulling up data on his tablet. I have the wind readings, elevation calculations, and time-of-flight data for every shot. Colonel, these were not easy kills. Variable winds gusting to 15 knots. Extreme distances. Moving targets in some cases. Elena made 14 shots over 34 minutes without a single miss. Waverly absorbed this without surprise. She had already reviewed the shot data. The skill demonstrated was extraordinary, but consistent with Vasquez's service record. This was what Delta snipers were trained to do. Sergeant Vasquez, she said carefully, why do you think the Marine Corps filed a report claiming no external support was received? Vasquez considered the question before answering. I cannot speak to their motivations, Colonel. I can only tell you what happened. I eliminated 14 enemy combatants. The Marines survived. My involvement is documented in Delta mission logs, handler communications, and ballistic evidence. Whether the Marine Corps acknowledges that involvement is beyond my control, Waverly nodded slowly. She had one more piece of evidence to discuss. I have reviewed Captain Briggs's service record and the communications log from the engagement. He became separated from his unit during the initial ambush. His vehicle contained the heavy weapons that might have provided fire support. He drove through the kill zone and kept going. Vasquez showed no reaction. I was not aware of those details. He abandoned his men, Waverly said flatly. Then he filed a report taking credit for their survival. A survival that you made possible. The video link was silent for a moment. When Vasquez spoke again, her voice carried something that might have been sadness. Those Marines fought hard to stay alive until I could help them. They held their positions under fire with almost no ammunition. Whatever their leadership did or did not do, those 18 men deserve recognition for their courage. Waverly felt a measure of respect for the woman on the screen. Vasquez had been erased from the official record, and her response was to defend the men who had erased her. She ended the interview and placed an immediate call to Major Reeves. When he answered, she did not waste time on preliminaries. "Major," she said, "my investigation is complete. Delta Force absolutely provided fire support during the engagement at Grid Force Eventer. Sergeant First Class Elena Vasquez is responsible for all 14 enemy casualties. The Marine official report is factually false in its entirety." Reeves was quiet for several seconds. "What happens now, Colonel?" Waverly pulled up the formal charges she had drafted that morning. "Captain Briggs will face court-martial for abandoning his unit and filing false official reports. Gunnery Sergeant Holt will face charges for filing false official reports and conduct unbecoming. Your Marines deserve to know the truth about who saved them. I intend to make certain they learn it." The news reached Elena Vasquez between missions, during the brief window of downtime that Delta operators learned to use for sleep, equipment maintenance, and the administrative details that accumulated like dust in a desert wind. Cole found her in the weapons bay, disassembling her rifle for the third cleaning that week. The ritual calmed her mind and kept her hands steady. A sniper's relationship with her weapon was almost spiritual. Every component mattered. Every grain of sand could mean the difference between a clean kill and a miss that cost American lives. "JSOC investigation is complete," Cole said as he settled onto the bench beside her. "Briggs is facing court-martial for abandoning his unit and filing false reports. Holt is charged with filing false official reports and conduct unbecoming. Both careers are finished." Vasquez continued her methodical cleaning without looking up. The bolt carrier group came apart in her hands with practiced efficiency. Good. Those Marines deserved better leadership. Cole watched her work for a moment before speaking again. "You know, this means the truth is coming out. Officially, the Marines who survived are going to learn who saved them. Your name is going to be in the classified record." "My name has been in classified records for 14 years, she replied. "That is how this works. We do not exist until someone needs to document what we accomplished. Then we exist on paper that no one outside a secure facility will ever read." She began reassembling the rifle, each component sliding into place with satisfying precision. 4 more targets had been added to her mission board that morning. A logistics coordinator in the southern province, a bomb maker operating near the border, 2 facilitators moving foreign fighters into the region. The work never stopped. The enemy never rested. Neither did she. Cole leaned forward, his frustration evident. "Elena, you saved 18 lives. 14 kills at extreme range under impossible conditions. You diverted from a high-value target mission to protect Marines you had never met. Does that mean nothing to you?" Vasquez paused her work and met his gaze directly. "It means everything to me. Those 18 men went home to their families. That is the only outcome that matters. Recognition does not change the outcome. Credit does not bring anyone back from the dead. I did what needed to be done. The rest is paperwork." Cole shook his head slowly, but he did not argue further. He had served beside her long enough to understand that her indifference to recognition was not performance. It was principle. The door to the weapons bay opened and Lieutenant Colonel Morrison entered with a tablet in his hand. His expression suggested he was about to ask something he already knew she would refuse. "Vasquez," he said, Marine Corps has submitted a formal request through JSOC channels. They want to hold a classified briefing for the 18 survivors. Full disclosure of Delta's involvement. They are requesting your presence. Vasquez returned to her rifle assembly. I am not required to attend classified briefings about my own missions. My after-action report speaks for itself. Morrison nodded. You are correct. Attendance is not required. But the request came with a personal note from Sergeant David Chun. He has been trying to identify you since the day of the engagement. He tracked every shot, documented every angle. He knew someone was out there, and he refused to let the official narrative bury the truth. Vasquez's hands stilled on the rifle. She had seen Chun through her scope that day. A sergeant who had kept his head while others panicked. A man who had tried to reach his wounded while enemy fire cracked around him. She remembered his face, the determination in his movements, the way he had looked toward the eastern ridge as if he could sense her watching. Cole spoke quietly. They want to thank you, Elena. The men whose lives you saved want to look you in the eye and say the words. Is that really something you want to deny them? She considered the question with the same precision she applied to ballistic calculations. For 14 years, she had operated in shadows. No recognition, no acknowledgement, no faces attached to the lives she saved or the enemies she eliminated. That anonymity was protection, both for her and for the mission she served. But those 18 Marines were not enemies. They were brothers in a different uniform who had survived because she had chosen to act. They had spent weeks not knowing who had saved them, wondering if they had imagined the guardian presence that had turned certain death into unlikely survival. She thought about Lance Corporal Okonkwo, the young Marine who had broken cover to save a wounded friend. She had watched through her scope as the enemy sniper tracked his movement, as death reached for him across 400 meters of open ground. She had stopped that death with a single shot from 2 kilometers away. Did Okonkwo deserve to know who had given him a future? Vasquez finished assembling her rifle and set aside. She looked at Morrison with eyes that had made calculations of life and death more times than she could count. Tell them I will attend, she said. Those Marines have questions. They deserve answers. Morrison nodded once and left to transmit her response. Cole remained on the bench, watching her with something that might have been surprise. I thought you did not care about recognition, he said. Vasquez stood and began gathering her equipment. I do not, but I care about those 18 men knowing the truth. That is different. She walked out of the weapons bay with the weight of a decision that felt more significant than any trigger pull. For the first time in her career, she was stepping out of the shadows voluntarily. The ghost was about to let herself be seen. The administrative hearing room at Camp Pendleton had the sterile efficiency of a place designed for endings. David Chun sat in the gallery beside Lance Corporal Okonkwo and watched Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Holt stand before the inquiry board with the rigid posture of a man who knew his career was already over. Captain Jerome Briggs had faced his own hearing the previous day. The evidence against him had been overwhelming and his defense non-existent. Abandoning his unit during contact, filing false official reports, conduct unbecoming an officer. He had been relieved of command, stripped of his rank, and recommended for discharge under other than honorable conditions. 23 years of service erased by 23 minutes of cowardice and the lies that followed. Now, it was Holt's turn to answer for his choices. The presiding officer, a colonel with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many good Marines destroyed by their own decisions, read the charges aloud. Filing false official reports in violation of a uniform code of military justice. Conduct unbecoming a non-commissioned officer. Failure to accurately document combat engagement, resulting in misallocation of recognition and resources. Holt stood motionless as the charges washed over him. Chin studied the man he had served under for 18 months and saw someone he no longer recognized. The confident gunnery sergeant who had commanded their respect through force of personality had been replaced by a hollow figure waiting for judgment. The evidence presentation took less than an hour. Ballistic analysis confirmed that all enemy casualties resulted from .338 Lapua Magnum rounds fired from extreme range. Communications logs documented the Delta handler authorizing Sergeant First Class Vasquez to provide fire support. Shot trajectory mapping showed 14 kills from 6 different firing positions over 34 minutes. Marine ammunition expenditure records showed less than 900 rounds fired, with 0 confirmed enemy casualties attributed to Marine weapons. The numbers told the story that Holt had tried to bury. His unit had survived because someone else had done the killing. Every word in his official report had been designed to obscure that truth. Holt's defense counsel attempted mitigation. Combat stress affecting judgment. Genuine belief in the accuracy of his account. Lack of awareness regarding Delta operations in the area. The arguments landed with the hollow thud of desperation against Stone. The board retired for deliberation and returned in less than 30 minutes. Chin knew the speed of their decision carried its own message. Some cases required no debate. Guilty on all charges. The sentence followed immediately. Reduction in rank from gunnery sergeant to sergeant. Forfeiture of 6 months' pay. Formal letter of reprimand to be permanently filed in service record. Removal from leadership positions. Recommendation against future promotion consideration. Holt received the verdict without visible reaction. His career as a senior non-commissioned officer was finished. 19 years of service, culminating in public disgrace. The board adjourned, and the gallery began to empty. Chun remained seated as Okonkwo departed, watching Holt gather himself for the walk out of the hearing room. Something in the older man's bearing suggested he was waiting for the witnesses to leave before showing any weakness. Chun stood and approached him instead. Holt noticed his approach and stiffened, preparing for confrontation. "Whatever you want to say, Sergeant, I'm not interested in hearing it." Chun stopped 2 meters away, close enough for private conversation, but far enough to maintain the space that rank and circumstance demanded. "I do not want to say anything, Gunny. I want to ask you something." Holt's jaw tightened. "Ask. Why?" Chun kept his voice level, genuinely curious rather than accusatory. "You knew the truth from the beginning. You saw the same shots I saw. You tracked the same angles. You knew someone was helping us. Why did you file a report that denied everything?" The question hung between them in the empty hearing room. Holt could have walked away. He could have refused to answer. Instead, something shifted in his expression, a wall crumbling that had been built from pride and shame in equal measure. "Because I cannot accept it," Holt said quietly. His voice carried none of the authority that had defined his leadership. "We were dying out there. My Marines were bleeding, and I could not stop it. Our ammunition was gone. Our position was hopeless. And then someone I never saw, someone I never heard, someone from so far away I could not even imagine a shot, started saving us one enemy at a time." He paused, and Chin saw the weight of admission pressing down on him. "I found out later it was a woman," Holt continued. "A female Delta sniper making kills at distances I did not think were possible. She saved every one of us, and I cannot accept that. Not because she was Delta, because she was a woman who did what I could not do. She protected my Marines when I failed to protect them." Chun absorbed this confession without judgment. The honesty cost Holt something visible, and Chun respected the price of admission. "She never asked for credit," Chun said. "She just wanted us to go home to our families." Holt nodded slowly. "I know, and I took even that from her. I erased her from the record because acknowledging her meant acknowledging my own failure. That is not who I thought I was, but that is who I turned out to be." He straightened his uniform one final time, the last gesture of a career that would never recover. "Tell her I am sorry," Holt said. "If you ever meet her, tell her I know what she did, and I am sorry I tried to pretend she did not exist." He walked out of the hearing room without looking back, leaving Chin alone with the understanding that some lessons only came through destruction. Colonel Patricia Waverly stood at the front of the secure briefing room at Camp Pendleton and studied the 18 Marines assembled before her. They sat in rows of metal chairs, their postures carrying the tension of men who knew they were about to learn something significant but did not yet understand what. These were the survivors of Grid Force Eventer. 4 of them still bore visible signs of their wounds. All of them carried invisible ones. They had spent weeks knowing they should be dead, wondering how they had survived, hearing official explanations that contradicted what their own eyes had witnessed. Today, they would learn the truth. "This briefing is classified," Waverly began. "Nothing discussed in this room leaves this room. What you are about to learn is not for public disclosure, not for family members, not for anyone outside this facility. Acknowledge your understanding." 18 voices responded in unison. "Yes, ma'am." Waverly nodded and continued. "On the day of your engagement, you were not alone in that valley. A Delta Force sniper operating in the area intercepted your distress call and made a tactical decision to provide fire support. Over a period of 34 minutes, this operator eliminated 14 enemy combatants from distances exceeding 2 kilometers. Every enemy casualty in that engagement was the result of her intervention." The word landed like a thunderclap in the silent room. "Her. She saved your lives," Waverly said. "And she is here today because you deserve to meet the person responsible for your survival." She gestured toward the door at the side of the room. It opened, and Elena Vasquez walked in. She was smaller than they expected. That was the first thing Chen noticed. The woman who had made impossible shots from 2 kilometers away stood perhaps 5'6", with a lean build and dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore no rank insignia, no unit identification, nothing that marked her as one of the most lethal snipers in American military history. Just a subdued American flag patch on her shoulder. She stopped at the front of the room and faced the 18 men whose lives she had saved. Her expression was calm, professional, revealing nothing of what this moment might mean to her. Waverly spoke again. "Sergeant First Class Elena Vasquez, Delta Force. Call sign Ghost. She was on a high-value target mission when she heard your distress call. She chose to deviate from that mission to save your lives. She made 14 kills in 34 minutes under conditions that would challenge the best snipers in the world. Then she completed her primary mission 18 hours later." The room remained silent. 18 Marines stared at the woman who had reached across 2 kilometers of mountain air to pull them back from death. Lance Corporal Okonkwo moved first. He stood from his chair, walked to the front of the room, and extended his hand. His voice carried the weight of a man speaking words he had rehearsed 1,000 times without knowing who would receive them. "You saved my life," he said. "I was dead. The enemy sniper had me in his sights. I felt the bullet pass over my head after you killed him. From 2 kilometers away. I do not know how to thank someone for something like that." Vasquez took his hand and shook it firmly. "I did my job. You're welcome." One by one, the other Marines rose. 17 more handshakes. 17 more expressions of gratitude that words could not adequately convey. Some spoke at length. Others could manage only a few syllables before emotion closed their throats. Vasquez received each one with the same quiet dignity, acknowledging their thanks without claiming any special credit for the actions that had earned it. Chen was last. He had waited deliberately, watching the others, preparing what he wanted to say. When he finally stood before her, he found that preparation was useless. "I knew someone was out there," he said. "From the first impossible shot, I knew. I tracked every angle. I documented everything. I spent weeks trying to find you. Why did you not want to be found?" Vasquez met his gaze with eyes that had seen more death than he could imagine. "Because this was never about me. It was about you going home. All of you. That is the only thing that mattered." Chen nodded slowly. He understood now. The woman before him did not operate for recognition or glory. She operated because she could do things no one else could do, and those abilities came with responsibilities she had never tried to escape. "Holt wanted me to tell you something," Chen said. "He knows what you did. He is sorry he tried to pretend you did not exist." Vasquez considered this for a moment. "Tell him I understand. Pride is a difficult thing to surrender. I hope he finds peace with what happened. Before we wrap up Elena's story, I want to ask you something. Has there ever been a moment in your life when someone you never saw, someone you never thanked, made all the difference? Share your story in the comments. You never know who might be watching out for you, even now." Waverly stepped forward to close the briefing. This incident will be recorded in classified archives. It will become a case study in joint operations and the importance of inter-service cooperation. But more than that, It will stand as a reminder that the warriors who save American lives do not always wear the same uniform. Sometimes they are ghosts you never see, never hear, never know existed until someone forces the truth into the light. She looked at Vasquez with respect earned through the investigation that had brought them to this moment. Sergeant Vasquez, on behalf of the Marine Corps and these 18 men, thank you. Vasquez nodded once, then turned and walked out of the briefing room without ceremony. She had said what needed to be said. The truth had been told. Her work here was finished. 6 months later, David Chun attended a joint training exercise at a facility whose location remained classified. He was walking past the long-range shooting complex when he noticed a figure at the furthest firing position, making shots at distances that seemed to violate the laws of physics. He approached to say hello, to thank her again, to simply acknowledge the connection forged in that valley. By the time he reached the position, she was gone, relocated to another firing point without a sound, without a trace. Still the ghost. But now he knew who she was. And somewhere in the classified archives of the United States military, the truth of what she had done would endure long after the lies had been forgotten. That was enough. It had to be.